So today I am going to introduce this still undergoing research entitled Cultural Ecosystem Services of Italian Forests and Semi-Natural Areas, More Than Just Recreation, which is a work still to be published by Professors Sietsma from the University of Groningen in the Netherlands, Professor Scozzi, Viccaro and Romano from the University of Basilicata, Dr. D'Angelo here present with us at the back, and me. So let's go on. I will start by providing some context, then I will clarify our objectives and questions. I will explain the methodology that we used, and then I will conclude with some salient findings. First of all, as you may know, in the field of ecosystem services, the provisioning and regulating and maintenance ones are the most investigated ones by researchers. Nevertheless, also cultural ecosystem services have the potential to provide information on the value of ecosystems. In that, oops, okay, I'm seeing something. So the Common International Classification of Ecosystem Services defines cultural ecosystem services as all the non-material outputs of ecosystems that affect physical and mental states of people. And they are important in that they have a fundamental role in human well-being. They have influence on environmental behaviors, and they are also useful to examine the socio-ecological relations, which are very much in line with the festival Transumare. And they can be used also in policy making. So the importance is to first quantify them before evaluating. And for cultural ecosystem services, it can be even harder as compared to others, because it is hard to find a practical and cost-effective method, as nature is a public good, and it can be very daunting to obtain a collective and uniform opinion on them, especially on a large scale. This is why we propose our method, which is largely based on a literature review using surveys, both live and digital, that also include open questions, where the open answers are analyzed through text mining techniques. One example that we refer a lot to is Lee and other researchers' workshops, which provided a reference for us, but they also have a constraint, which is the notable effort in organizing the live workshops and then transferring the written answers into a statistical environment. This is why many researchers use GIS. This is an example called Social Values for Ecosystem Services. But the best option proved to be public participation GIS, which provide a lot of advantages, starting from the possibility to account for the spatial heterogeneity of ecosystem services demand, and also the possibility to collect data and information in a participatory way, and then to achieve statistical indicators of distributions. And this is also a way to overcome the arbitrariness of the visual analysis of, for example, the geotagged photos, which is another method often used by researchers to analyze cultural ecosystem services. In our case, we used WebGIS called Green Mapper because it offers, so WebGIS offers new ways and advantages to gather collective information, starting from the fact that they provide a non-local sampling. Then they also have absence of time constraints and organizational problems and costs. And also they have a highly voluntary participation. Also, they have reduced experimenter effects and demand characteristics. which behavioral economists might know very well. And this is GreenMapper, the WebGIS that we used. You can also participate in the web survey. Now let's clarify which are our objectives in this work. They are mainly to identify and map the cultural ecosystem services of Italian natural and semi-natural areas with WebGIS and text analysis. And also to offer a method to quantify answers of respondents for a deeper analysis on which cultural ecosystem services the respondents to the questionnaire spatially connect with the environments. The research, or better, the main research questions that we are trying to address in this still ongoing research are: what are the most attractive natural and semi-natural environments for Italians, and which cultural ecosystem services these environments provide? So what we differ from other works is mainly the national scope, because most of the researchers in the literature review refer to specific regions or specific preserves. We also adapt to the content analysis methodologies in the field of cultural ecosystem services, because we use and refer to context units, which are phrases and expressions instead of single keywords. And also we use the Common International Classification of Ecosystem Services as a framework, because it originated from the European Environment Agency, and also it provides more detailed categories compared to the Millennium Ecosystem Assessment. Also, it is used and always updated. It was updated by 2 European projects called Openness and Esmeralda, and for several other reasons, because it is also interoperable with other systems, and it can help us align through time with European environmental policies. So this is, let's say, a 360 degrees look at the methodology, which starts from the database selection, goes on with text mining, and then provides some results. Let's quickly see the process of database selection, which comes from, in Italy, from opinioni.net, managed by Demetra Opinions. And it was gathered throughout January 2018 on the behalf of GreenMapper. It resulted into 1,632 interviews that gave 6,706 markers distributed among the 4 levels that GreenMapper, this WebGIS devised by the University of Groningen, asks to provide. These 4 levels are neighborhood, within 2 kilometers from the home of the respondents, living environment, between 20 kilometers from the home of the respondents, then country at the national level, and world at the global scale. So we superimposed to the XY coordinates of the dataset through the use of QGIS, the core inland cover levels. And then we extrapolated only the records matching agricultural areas and forest and semi-natural areas, which are respectively code 2 and 3 of the core inland cover. So the final dataset was composed of 2,232 markers, which corresponds to 33.28% of the original dataset. Let's now step into the text mining phases. This is just a sample of the keywords that came out from the text analysis carried out with a software called AntConc, designed by the linguist Lawrence Anthony. Let's see the example of the word natura, for which we created a lemma list, which means a group of words with similar meaning or same meaning. Then we assessed the concept's whole frequency, which in this case was 319, and we identified key phrases and expressions, the most recurring ones, which then were matched with the common international, so to the CITES cultural ecosystem services codes, as you can see in the table. Let's have a look at the most salient findings, starting from the most attractive Corinland cover areas for Italians, which are, as you can see from the charts, arable land, heterogeneous agricultural areas, and forests. As you can see, forests, for example, attract Italians more at the national and global level. And also some other percentages differ from one level to the other. This means that Italians tend to move towards forests more when they are tourists towards a national destination or a global destination. But it is important to underline that the percentages at the total ones are a bit different from the specific level ones. Regarding what activities Italians go and perform when they go to natural and semi-natural areas, out of 34 activities and 8,479 expressions of choice, the most appreciated activities are all of nature, which stands for enjoying nature with no precise purpose. Then walking, driving the car, running, sunbathing, picnicking and barbecue, photo shooting, driving and cycling. So in our research, you can see how the activities match the Corinland cover areas. And this gives an overall picture of the recreational activities, which are also ecosystem services in terms of the cultural ones. But we wanted to go deeper in our analysis and see what there was beyond the 0-1 answers and the recreational activities. This is why through text mining we derived cultural ecosystem services with the methodology explained before, which gives us a picture of which categories are the most appreciated. For example, at the top, you can see that passive enjoyment of nature is the most recurring one, which might give an idea of the Italian way to appreciate nature. So we're curious to see the same methodology, what results it gives in other countries. And also in intellectual and representative ones, aesthetic experiences are the most prominent. And also there is a good percentage of symbolic meaning, which belongs to the spiritual category. This instead is a chart showing the connections between the cultural ecosystem services and the Corinland cover levels, which gives us evidence of the fact that forests are the ones that provide more ecosystem services compared to others, the cultural ones. And of course, we can draw more results from this still undergoing research to discover which other ecosystem services and subcategories are provided by perfectioning our methodology and going on with the research and analysis. So to conclude, We can definitely state the advantage of using a participatory WebGIS for the reasons that I explained at the beginning, because it has an open approach, both in the choice and in the motivations that lead to that choice in the respondent, who expresses personal and social values in the open answers, also by delineating categories of cultural ecosystem services in a non-a prioristic way. This gives the possibility to investigate those categories of cultural ecosystem services that are usually underestimated, which are more than just recreation, as we saw, and which can be, for example, the symbolic meaning of the natural resources, proved to be an important driver of community well-being and tourist appreciation, although they are often neglected in the decision-making processes. And also the aesthetic experiences, which are one of the most recognized cultural ecosystem services by Italians, according to our text mining analysis. But we all already knew that Italians are estates. And cultural ecosystem services mapping could also represent a basis in regional forest planning, closely linked to other territorial and sectoral planning tools, like regional landscape plans, which still do not find a full implementation between regional and provincial administrations. And also, this work, as we hope, can give an opportunity to lay the foundation for further analysis through the use of the same database provided by Green Mapper, which is still ongoing and open to new answers. And also we wish to provide a methodology for text analysis for open answers. And for instance, the same analysis could be conducted for cultural ecosystem services connected with other levels, such as the urban green areas, and also the urban level where there are the urban green areas, and also level 4 for the wetlands, and level 5 for the water bodies. These are other conclusions. For example, we also have some limits, of course, which can underpin future improvement of the same survey or other surveys to be carried out. For example, there is a still blurred distinction between the cultural ecosystem service 3.1.2.1 and the subsequent one, which are respectively investigation of nature to create traditional ecological knowledge on the one hand, and the same but to create education, so for education and training, which in Green Mapper was not clearly asked for. So, and also when the respondents provide an open answer, for example, if they say that they go to a natural area to do bird watching, they do not really state why they do bird watching, if to study or for other reasons. So this could also give some interesting information. And also sometimes when we go on in our research, we wonder what other information we could draw from the social demographic data and the relationship between cultural ecosystem services preference and marine land cover. Then, of course, we will try to assess in the future the economic value of the identified services through one or more methods, which we are still investigating, which can be the willingness to pay or travel costs. So thank you for your attention, and I'm open to questions.